So what does this retirement mean for the future of the Supreme Court? Joining us now to discuss that, Professor of History at Johns Hopkins and ABC News contributor Leah Wright-Rigueur, and attorney Kevin Russell. He's a partner at Goldstein and Russell here, and he clerked for Justice Breyer in the justice's second term back in the 1990s. Welcome to you both. Kevin, I'd like to begin with you. Having worked closely with Justice Breyer as a clerk on the Supreme Court, what are your feelings today? Is your sense of the legacy that it leaves behind, and why now? Do you think, as Rachel suggested, that pressure or the mere fact of partisan politics right now got to him?
Well, I think in terms of his legacy, he is far and away the most pragmatic of the justices left on the court. He believes that the Supreme Court's work is part of the larger government effort to make a government that works for the people as they experience the law in their everyday life. And so much more than many of his colleagues who will focus on the text and on original understanding, he really cares about how the law will operate on the ground for real people. And that's going to be a voice that's going to be missed on this court after he retires. In terms of why he's retiring, I don't have any inside information. I suspect that he saw what happened with Justice Ginsburg and her replacement by somebody who's going to disagree with a lot of her important decisions and maybe doesn't want to suffer the same fate. He does, to the extent he didn't retire earlier, it's because he does not like this view of the justices as political actors. And I'm sure that that's, something that's weighing on him, because he's going to know that this is being portrayed by many folks as a act that took into account political considerations.
So, Leah, let's just talk about this historic first. President Biden's pledge to nominate a black woman to serve on the court. What would that representation mean from a practical standpoint as the court makes decisions?
Well, I think there are a number of ways that it would really resonate. First, it's something that activists, that practitioners, that scholars, that virtually everyone has been asking for a very long time. We know that President Obama, for example, his short list included a black woman, vetted for the Supreme Court on it many years ago. So we know there's been an enormous amount of pressure on President Biden to appoint a black woman, and for his press secretaries to say that he plans on standing by that in the event that it becomes a reality is momentous. I think it's also incredibly important as we think about the dynamics of the Supreme Court, in the representation of the Supreme Court. A black woman has never been appointed to the Supreme Court. A black woman has never even been nominated to the Supreme Court. But not only that, the issues that the Supreme Court faces disproportionately affect black women, African-American women in this country. So, for example, we know that the court is continuing to see cases on abortion. Black women are affected by the rulings either way. We know that the court is going to continue to see cases on affirmative action. Again, black women affected either way, affected every way. The other thing that I would say, too, that is really important here is that the most prominent black woman who's been associated with the Supreme Court is Anita Hill. And it's Anita Hill through the confirmation hearing of Clarence Thomas. There's an HBO movie about it. One of the things that I think this does, by nominating a black woman, really changes the perception in the relationship of black women to the Supreme Court, while also constantly reminding us of the debacle of, that happened in the 1990s. So both saying, we're going to right a historic wrong, but we have there's no country, no space for the kind of spectacle that happened in the 1990s. So we're righting a wrong. And I think the last thing here, too, is that we know that anybody that Biden puts on the court is at the very least going to reflect, the political position of Justice Breyer. More likely than not, though, that the person will be a little bit to Justice Breyer's left, more liberal, more progressive. This sets us up for a standoff on the court. We already have a standoff. We already have a definitive split. But I think this deepens the split and puts everything on display in far more political and profound ways.
So, Kevin, as we mentioned, you knew Breyer personally. As people are poring over his decisions and talking about his legacy now, tell us something we don't know about him.
Well, he really loved the law, and he loved talking about the law. You know, he was a law professor before he was a judge, and while he was a judge, and he would wander the halls of the Supreme Court thinking about these cases, not just the big, high-profile cases, but the small ones too, and eager to talk to anybody he could find, even other justices' clerks. He would pigeonhole them in the hallways and make them talk to him about whatever case he was thinking about, even if they, weren't assigned to the case and didn't know much about it, because he just so much enjoyed his job and enjoyed the work of the law.
I think that's exactly true. He had that, has that professorial demeanor on the court as well. The nature of his questioning, a lot of hypotheticals, which is very typical, of course, in law. But he also, he really liked engaging with the advocates in front of the court. Leah, let me turn to you as we look ahead. Whoever this next nominee is, she is going to be joining the court at a critical, existential moment for so many as you said, for so many Americans. What kind of questions does it raise about the legitimacy of the court? We are going after our institutions in this divided moment in our history so aggressively. The Capitol itself was attacked. Bush versus Gore started a collapse in confidence in the Supreme Court of the United States. The new justice is going to come onto a court that will lose a piece of the center, as Kevin was just saying. Is the court's legitimacy declining, do you think?
Well, I think the court has always been a political place. It is a place where politics takes place. It is a place where partisanship has really, and ideological difference has really thrived in past years. What's different now, though, is that the American public is far more aware of it, particularly because of several high-profile cases that have come before the court, but also because of several high-profile hearings, right, and confirmation hearings that have happened. Right? I'm particularly thinking about Brett Kavanaugh. What anybody who is nominated in this climate is going to experience is there is going to be an onslaught of partisan and political outrage. It is going to essentially be a circus. By all indications. It'll be an enormous amount of attention and press, and the world will be watching. But I think the other part that is really important about this is that even as the court has been political and has remained political, it is really quite self-conscious about not appearing political. It is even more self-conscious right now because the American public finally understands the court as a political place and as a partisan place. So what we may end up seeing are overt displays of nonpartisanship, right, and bipartisanship, an emphasis on the justices getting together and, camaraderie. And I think part of what that is designed to do is to reassure the American public that, look, we're impartial, we're the Supreme Court. Is that possible right now? I don't actually know, right? Because ultimately, their decision making, right, the legal rulings that they hand down are going to determine how the American public sees them, as well as the confirmation hearings and how those play out in the American public.
As you point out, Leah, there's a kind of outrage industry around these nominations. I think there's a kind of an outraged America and a normal America. I'm hopeful that the normal Americans still outnumber the constantly outraged ones, but maybe not. And Kevin, let me go back to you on Justice Breyer leaving at this moment that we're talking about. He is a justice, as you've said, who has wanted to make our government work in the way it can best for ordinary people. It wasn't about a legal doctrine so much as about self-government. What do they call it? Participatory self-government. And that the justice's role was to affirm those instincts. Well, here we are, the Capitol attacked. If all this was happening in another country, you'd take a look at it and you'd say, that is not a healthy democracy. Do you think he leaves on a sad note, given that his life's work is being challenged so severely right now?
I hope not, and I don't think so. I mean, he's an internal optimist. He was, a true believer in the Supreme Court as partisan institution and working together. He has always had a great working relationship with his other colleagues. For many years, he sat next to Justice Thomas on the bench, and they would chit chat and joke with each other. And they had very collegial relationships with all of the justices, even when they disagreed strongly with one another. At the same time, I've got to imagine, looking out on what's happening in the world, as you've mentioned, he's got to be a little concerned, given that part of his life's work has been evangelizing the values of democracy and the court's role in it as sort of helping the institutions of government be successful and working for the people. I suspect he thinks that better days are ahead of us, but I'm sure he's concerned as well.
And his lesson, his example on the bench there, I remember exactly what you're talking about. He and Justice Thomas, sometimes they almost seemed like the naughty kids in class. Sometimes they would enjoy themselves during some of the longer and perhaps less interesting arguments. But Kevin Russell and Leo Redriger, thanks very much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.